My name is Mike Pavek. I'm an Eagle Group member, and I love coming to this every week. As far as my background, I was in the Army for 22 years as a logistician and a modeling and simulation officer, and then I transitioned in 2018. Eagle Group was a huge part of that transition because it was a difficult time and a challenging time, a lot of soul searching and trying to figure out where do I fit in that process. It's a great pleasure every week to be able to come and help others through that process. So what we're going to talk about today is one way to make that transition, and that's through an apprenticeship. Minnesota has a great apprenticeship program and a lot of outreach to veterans. And so we're going to talk through some slides that the MND and DLI provided to me. So without further ado, we'll get started. And then as part of this presentation, we're also going to be sharing a personal testimony from one of our Eagle Group members that have gone through an apprenticeship program. So first of all, good point of contact for this, and actually let me put the link in the chat as well for DLI. We will talk about the website too, but I'll put that in starting now. And these slides were provided by Department of Labor and for Minnesota's Department of Labor, and so we're going to be talking through these. Okay, so this will be our agenda. And the first thing a little bit about Department of Labor and industry itself. And I'm going to also turn this to Stephen for a second, but just kind of the relationship between MND and DLI, because I'm not quite familiar with that part. But DLI is one of the program administrators for the apprenticeship program. And you can see some of the services that they provide here. Apprenticeship is just one part of a larger picture of trade, organization, and support missions and services that they provide. Stephen, could you talk for just a second about the relationship between DLI and MND, since most of us are familiar with DEED more often?
Well, I usually refer everybody to Laurent. I've been working with him for a number of years in my previous role and the role before that even. So they do have a great program. You probably know more about the nuts and bolts of it. Like I said, I usually refer people to Laurent or to Leslie. I've also worked with her quite a bit.
Okay, great. All right, so next slide. So now we're going to talk about some specifics, kind of facts and myths about apprenticeships first, because there's a lot of misperceptions about what an apprenticeship is, who it's for, and what kind of opportunities it provides. Okay, so the first one, people think in terms of Minnesota, oh, that is only located in the metro area. That's not true. In fact, there's a number of different apprenticeships throughout the entire state, including things in areas like IT and some of these other areas. So if you're looking and interested in an apprenticeship program and you think it's only in the Twin Cities, that's not the case. The next one is it's only applies in the construction trades. So we're going to show a list later on of all the different industries that there's apprenticeships in, but these include areas that you wouldn't expect to find an apprenticeship in, such as healthcare, information technology, administrative, a bunch of these on top of the more traditional ones. So when we think traditionally about an apprenticeship program, we're thinking construction and manufacturing, and certainly as well as utilities. And certainly there's a lot of those apprenticeship opportunities in those industries, but there's a lot of other ones that we're going to show in a few minutes. The next one is we think of apprenticeships only as being something that a large company can afford or a large company supports. And in fact, in Minnesota, we have apprenticeships throughout both large, medium, and small companies. And again, we're going to show us a bunch of these companies here in just a little bit. Another myth and the perception that people think of is that apprenticeships are very temporary, and once you finish your apprenticeship, you leave the company. Or from an employer's perspective, that apprentice will leave the company.
For loyal customers who had viewed it, had shared it with your friends, so you can understand the shortage of ammunition as we see it as a big.
Can we ask everybody to mute themselves, please?
Okay, so we're talking about the turnover and and everything. So in fact, there's actually a big opportunity to stay with the company that you apprentice with. And from a company's perspective, that's great as well, because they get to retain that talent and retain that knowledge. And then there's the discussion as far as unions. Not all apprenticeships involve unions, but some do. Okay, and as we go through these slides, again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Feel free just to let me know. Okay, so when we think about apprenticeship programs, there's actually three big groups that are affected: the employers, the workers, and then the state of Minnesota. And there's benefits for an apprenticeship throughout all of those. So I highlighted here on this slide a couple ones that particularly jumped out. So if you're an employer, and we're going to talk a little bit about if you're here as a resource at these meetings too, and from an employer standpoint, consider an apprenticeship program for your company. But we'll talk about as far as building your workforce, as also creating new skilled worker pipeline. So one of the challenges from an employer's perspective is the worker pipeline itself, especially when there's a skills gap going on. And that skills gap could be in a bunch of different areas. It might be in terms of advanced manufacturing, for example. Maybe you need a certain set of skills to work on a transducer load cell or electrical designer. And there's just not that group of skills in the area. An apprenticeship program lets you grow your workforce into that. So that's where the building, shaping, and creating a workforce pipeline is critical for an employer, because we've seen a lot of employers have to reduce the amount of production that they do, all based on the fact that they don't have the human resources to be able to do that production. So it becomes huge. The other areas is we talked about retaining and transferring organizational knowledge. So that was one of those myths that apprenticeships leave the company, but in fact, there's a lot of opportunities to stay in the company, and that allows that organization to retain your knowledge and skill set. And lastly is that there's a lot of incentives to hire veterans. We're going to talk about that a little bit more and just see how big of a group that veterans are within an apprenticeship program. Now, if you're a worker, if you're somebody who's looking for an opportunity, there's a ton of benefits, obviously. Obviously, the first one is an employment. You have a job. So that's good. But more importantly, it's not just having a job. It's about getting a lot of on-the-job training. So that comprehensive job training, being able to work with somebody to mentor your skills as you kind of developing. And why this matters and why it's important is when we do a transition, a lot of times at Eagle Group, we think about people that have 20 years of time in service, senior officers, senior enlisted. But there's another group here, whether you're there for 4 years or even 10 years, or if you're doing a complete transfer and change into a whole new industry and you don't know where to start, or you don't have the skills necessarily to jump into an industry that you're ready for. Apprenticeships are incredible opportunities for that. Master in-demand skills. So we talked about how, so at an apprenticeship, how you get to be trained in these areas. So your skills will grow as your apprenticeship goes on. And then lastly is for the state of Minnesota. If you're from the state of Minnesota, you're looking, or from the state, if you're looking from the state's perspective, there's a lot of benefits to an apprenticeship program. One, it helps build the middle class overall. Two, you're really looking at quality training and quality opportunities for our workers. And so as far as the overall economic effect for Minnesota, there's a big benefit to this. Okay. So when we talk about a registered apprenticeship, we're talking about 5 main areas. One is just the employment itself, that you have that opportunity, that the workers are now having a job. More importantly, we start taking a look at on-the-job training. You're getting your hands dirty, whether that's by manufacturing, whether that's working through utilities, or whether that's working through understanding IT and developing code. Lots of different on-the-job trainings. And this links back to the education itself. So there's components, and so what an apprenticeship allows you to do is take, say you have an associate's, or say you have a bachelor degree, but no work experience in these areas. Or even if you just have credentialing, which we'll talk about in a little bit more later. Say you've just got a credential in being a Scrum Master, for example. You can link that beginning education with on-job training to develop your skills as an individual a lot more. Obviously, wages are kind of important and something we all care about. And so this helps provide you ability to support yourself and your family. And then the last piece with an apprenticeship is the credentialing itself. So whether we're talking about the program credentialing or whether we're talking about credentialing opportunities for you as the individual, apprenticeship offers that ability to connect and upskill the workers as we go through. So you see kind of time-tested model to recruit, train, and retain a highly skilled and diverse workforce. Okay, so this is the process itself. This talks about the development of a program. So this is more for an employer. So if you're an employer right now or you work with an employer, these are kind of the steps. I won't go into these in a whole lot of detail. Just take a look and review. This is how it goes. You start with creating a job description. So if you're an employer and you're interested in running an apprenticeship program or considering it, these are the things to consider. You need a job. Take a look as far as, and this is really just the standard process of creating any job description, wage scale, safety training, all these types of pieces. But then the next part is where you'll really start working with DLI, is about the standards, the program standards itself. Laron is a great person to connect with on this one. And then as far as scheduling a timeline. Okay, so if you have any questions on this area, I encourage you to reach out to Laron. There's some slides with his contact information near the end. Okay, so let's talk about the demographics. We talked about this a little bit before. Three big areas that we see in terms of populations: people of color, women, and veterans. Since this is equal group, let's take a look at just the number of veterans. Okay. If you look at the number, you can just see a steady increase of veterans throughout the year, especially as we come here in 2018, 2019, lots of veterans have started using this program. So this isn't just about the people that are here on the meeting, but as well as any other vets that you may know that are looking to transition. This is a great program to kind of encourage them for. But we see at 7% usage or 7% of the participants come from a veterans background. Okay, so we talked about different types of industries and intersectors that apprenticeships have. So if you take a look, the first three are kind of when we think of traditional apprenticeships: utilities, construction, and advanced manufacturing. There's certainly a lot of opportunities there. And I come from a manufacturing background. I could say, how much this is a growing sector as we continue to go forward. But then if you look past that, there's also a number of different sectors that you may not think of in terms of apprenticeship. So we'll kind of break this section down more. These were programs as of the end of 2020. So this is an ever-changing number of programs, but it gives you an idea. So I've seen this IT side be a lot higher, but I've also seen it kind of ebb and flow. So for example, let's talk healthcare. So these are the types of apprenticeship opportunities that are actually available for healthcare workers. So things that you don't normally think of, especially say like an RN, is actually available as an apprenticeship as well. So you can see the kind of total number is 12 out of 95. Okay, this one, I'm not going to go into this. There are grants for employers to run an apprenticeship program. So again, if you're an employer interested in this, this helps offset some of the costs involved in running the program. Initiative, we won't go into that one. This is also, now we leave that. So, okay, so let's talk through this one. So this is an example. This is the current, as of the end of the year, employers that were involved. So as we talked about, not a big surprise, lots of manufacturers involved in there. But in addition, there's a lot of other areas where they were talking about ag, transportation, IT, healthcare. You can see the whole list, and I just put this in the website or in the chat, and we're going to go to the website in just a few minutes as well. We'll kind of walk through that piece. But as you can see, there's a big variety of opportunities and employers and things that you might not expect to see: a surgical technologist, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so this is where I turn all questions over to Laron Latimer, who's not here. But I'll post these slides as well, so you can take a look at these on the video afterwards. Okay, so are there any questions on the slides before I go to the website? And then we're going to talk to have Luke share his experiences with the program. Okay, so hang on a second. I'm going to change over the share. Give me a second here. Should be screen 2. Okay, can everybody see my browser window?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so here's the main landing page for if you type in Minnesota apprenticeship. This is where you'll usually land. You can go of one of 3 spots: apprentice, employers, or parents and counselors. For this part, we're just going to walk it through as if you're an apprentice. Okay, here's some additional information and facts and the benefits. A lot of it's similar to what we talked about, as well as a couple testimonial videos. Kind of most relevant for people will be to start to take a look at finding an apprenticeship itself. Okay, so you'll come to this page and it'll load up. So here you can list it lists all the apprenticeships, and you can start sorting by industry, location, or occupation. So let's talk industry for right now. So we'll use ag as actually we'll use healthcare as a starting point, since we have a slide on that. Okay, so these list all the current healthcare opportunities. Try to make that a little bit smaller so you can kind of see that better for the number of varieties of different positions. So what you can see is a number of different positions available here. And you'll even see things like an IT analyst that's coded as a healthcare position. So it's worth your while to be checking all the different industries just to see. So let's just go to one of these as an example. So when you come here, you're going to see the employer information as well as your point of contact. Generally, what you're going to do is reach out to this point of contact to get the discussion started, and then you'll go from there. Also, say you're not really interested in an apprenticeship, but you are interested in that organization or company, then you can always use this point of contact as a place to get started, because this is somebody that's generally understanding people in transition. So even if these apprenticeships, in other words, even if this apprenticeship doesn't completely match what you're looking for, it's still worthwhile because you know that these companies are open to training and growing their workforce. So it's still worth your while to reach out to them. Okay. Any questions on the web page or anything else so far? Okay, then what we're going to do, I'm going to stop the share for a second, and then I'm going to turn this over to Luke and ask Luke, if you could just talk us through, give us a little bit of information, your background in history, and kind of how you were connected with an apprenticeship, and then how that went and what you learned from it.
Yeah. Michael was the one who actually, Mike gave me the link to the apprenticeship. That's how I found out about it. And so when I first, I guess I served 4 years in the Marine Corps, I was a motor team mechanic. So I changed from vehicle mechanics to a software developer. I have a 4-year degree from Emmaus Bible College in computer science. When Mike showed me the link for the apprenticeship, I saw the one that was on there for technology, and that one is for the CMERDC, stands for the Central Minnesota Educational Research and Development Council. The main office is located in St. Cloud. I started in the office here in Shoreview. We have since closed that office down. I turned in my keys last Monday. So we'll be fully remote with that. When I went to the link though, I called, the link, the person contact for that name is Michael Schroeder, and I called him. I talked to him. He had at the time said they didn't have any openings. There's something with the state gives them so much allotments, and then also how many people the company itself can hire. Not sure how the state decides. There's currently 2 of us apprenticed at the office right now. But he told me to send in my resume. I sent in my resume. A few weeks later, they asked for an interview. They did not. They did the interview. The next day, they called me and said they'll be sending my acceptance letter. I accepted the offer, and I started working there March 16th, which happens to coincide with basically everything shutting down. So I worked 2 weeks in the office and then started working from home. Overall, the experience has been great. It helps with getting hands-on experience, getting actual programs that are used in the real world. I find that in class for college and tutorials and stuff like that, they fall far short of what is actually used. I currently work on 2 projects. I'm working part-time for both of them, and both of them use ASP.NET. So we are using, if anyone knows and is familiar with any HTML, we're still using tables to lay out the website. So this is the downside that I have found with this opportunity. One thing with tech is that it's advancing really fast. And so my company is using technologies that is at least 10 years out of date. So that is a downside, that it does not prepare me quite as much for other openings. We are working on getting one of our projects to start using Next.js, which is a form of React, which allows for much simpler website designs than what we are doing. As far as pay for the apprenticeship, the pay starts off a little lower than normal, than a normal position. I am getting paid more than other coding boot camps that I found that would pay you and put you in a position. So that is a positive. I do not have any year contract, 1 year, 2 year contract. So that's great too. So I can choose to leave at the end of my apprenticeship. I am at this point going to continue on with the company when my 1 year comes up in March. Let's see. I'm not sure what else you would like to know.
Does anybody have any questions for Luke? So one of the things when Luke was going through his job search that really jumped out at me was he made a statement, having just come out of college with his background, from a computer programming perspective, a lot of times you're being asked to show your work. And when you mainly have schoolwork, it's just not the same, and those projects don't necessarily match. And I remember sitting down with Luke and him talking about how it's frustrating because he didn't have that direct experience, and he really just needed someone to give him a chance so he could build up his portfolio. And that was for me when it really started clicking. Hey, what about an apprenticeship program to get started? And I've talked to a lot of vets who are in a similar situation where they've got now their certification, they've got their education, but they don't necessarily have that direct experience. So depending on your path, depending on your financial needs, depending on a whole lot of variables, though, an apprenticeship can really help get you started down your career. So
One other thing I'd add on to that too, though, I do have full benefits. So I have medical, dental, and I have, what is it? I have the teachers uh, retirement plan through para for that. So we do have, it's lower pay, but you do get covered. So
Hey Luke, it's Renee Roth. Good to hear from you again. Did you have more than one, I'll say, choice, or I mean, were there several opportunities that you saw that might be a fit for you?
as far as the apprenticeship,
Yeah.
I did not look at any of the other ones like the healthcare ones that Michael was showing. There is only the one listed for IT, and that's the one I
Mm.
went with. And unlike most experience, the process for my hiring went really, really quick.
Yeah, sounds like.
One of the nice things with this is that you have a direct contact with someone. I'm not sure how the other companies would do it, but Michael Schroeder is the person who has set up the apprenticeship. And so he knows how the apprenticeship works for the company I'm with and how the apprenticeship works with the state. And you can call him, reach him, and uh, I had a good experience with the turnaround in communication for there compared to other places where it's months in between communication.
That's great. Thanks for taking the time to share that with us today. It's nice to have a real life kind of case behind what Michael presented. Thanks for coming and sharing with us.
Hey, Luke, this is Mike Orange. So yeah, good to hear you again too. And so is this, because it moves so fast, was that based solely on being a veteran?
I have not, I don't know if it was based on being a veteran or not.
Yeah.
I can't give you that information. I mean, I could probably ask. I know there is another veteran who got the position. We also just hired a executive director who is a veteran. He did 4 years also in the Marines. So we're a small company too. There's probably 50 people. I know there's only 19 people in the who work around 19 people who work down here in the cities. I'm not sure. We're kind of disconnected from St. Cloud. So I'm not exactly sure how many work there. But we're a small company, so the amount of veterans is a positive aspect for that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Hi, this is Frank Topar. I guess this question is also for Luke since he's got some experience. Are all of the apprenticeship type positions there paid, or are some of them more like an internship?
They are all paid from my understanding. I believe I might be wrong on this point, but I believe the pay starts at 40% of the rate of someone who would be a non-apprentice, I guess. And then I think there is also the opportunity to get an increase in that pay as you get certifications for things.
Performance raises or whatever.
I don't have any opportunities for certifications, so I think I recall reading that on the website. It's been a while, but all the positions are paid, which is a huge bonus.
Yeah, that's good to know because just in case, right now I'm actually working on 2 different avenues here of continuing my education. I just started yesterday going through LinkedIn Learning. I'm getting my Scrum certifications, Yesterday, I passed the first one for Scrum Basics, and now I'm in the middle of Scrum Advanced. And then working with Mike Ellis, I forgot for sure his last name. He's helping me get hooked up to complete my CompTIA stuff. I have had A+ and Network Plus already for about 10 or 12 years, and I didn't realize at that time that the CompTIA Security Plus was a part of that thing. It's actually a model to build on, and if you've got all three parts, then it's almost like having one really good certification. So I'm going to start working on that with him, and I just got started on I got signed up for it. And I've also been working with Scott Harris. He got me going on another avenue of learning. I can't remember what it is. Are you out there? Are you there, Scott? I'm not looking at my notes. He might not be there. But anyway, he has started me going down another avenue. It's military something training, military learning, advanced training or something like that. I don't remember. But he told me that was a really good place to get started with this too, because I can learn some project management and some Scrum skills and stuff like that while I'm taking those courses. So I got my iron in a lot of fires right now, but it sure is helping me to stay busy, and it's helping me to make myself more marketable. So I'm quite happy with the way I'm going so far.
Thanks, Frank.
Any other questions or comments or thoughts?
Well, Mike, I just wanted to relate back to something you said earlier. You said sometimes you can change your role or change an industry, and we don't have to necessarily look at that as a step back. You know, you may have a lot of experience in one area, or, you know, be of a certain age or whatever. You know, this is really a chance to make a new start into something different maybe. And, you know, you bring your experiences with you, but it's not necessarily, you know, a negative thing.
Yep. Oh, exactly. You know, and a lot of people, when they're transitioning, sometimes limit themselves in what they look for just based off of their military occupation. I've seen that happen so many times. At the same time, I've seen like one of my old friends, he was a modeling and simulation officer, and then he became a gunsmith. But he actually, in order to do that, had to go through his own education, had to do an apprenticeship himself, and then discovered he really, really enjoyed being a gunsmith. You know, so there's so a transition is just that. It's a transition. It's an opportunity to make a change, and not to be afraid of that change. And so there's programs here like these apprenticeship programs, other programs that you can make that change if you want to do something different. And if not, that's okay too. But this is what transition is all about, change. Okay, any last questions or comments before I pass it back over to Alan? Okay, well then, thanks very much for your time, everybody. And if you have any questions, the slides will be posted on the YouTube video, a link for that on the slide share. And if you need to contact me or Luke, just don't be afraid to reach out. And back over to you, Alan.